objectives for today is we want to really just make for sure that everyone who attends has a basic understanding of what advocacy means. The basic definition of advocacy, how we can introduce advocacy and start introducing advocacy, into our lives, and how we can really engage in advocacy. So many of you may have a little bit of a deeper understanding of advocacy today, and that's okay. But today we are going for just the basics. We want to lay a really good foundation and then start building blocks on top of that. And so we will have other webinars that will be this is more of a level 1 webinar. We will have level 2 and 3 in the future as well. So we want to ask the question, let's get started. What is advocacy? What does advocacy mean? So feel free in the chat box to take a moment and kind of throw out some words that you think of when you hear the word advocacy. What are some things? What are some words, some sentences even? What is advocacy? So if you will write down those in the chat box, and we'll give everyone just a quick moment to do that. I'm seeing voice and support, championing. What are some other words you think of when you hear the word advocacy? I'll give you guys just another moment. Ooh, a good one. Educate, influence, help, speaking up. Those are all great words. Anything else that comes to mind? Prevention. All right. Promote, voice. Okay. So now we have the advocacy word cloud. And this word cloud was developed from a previous webinar, but it was developed from people just like you who was asked to throw out words when they heard the word advocacy and really what it means to them. So you might see some of your words in the word cloud as well, or you might see some different words. And I forgot to mention, this webinar is a team effort. So we want to make for sure that if you, at any point, if you have questions or comments, feel free to raise your hand or pop the question in the chat, and we will get that question answered for you. But going back to the word cloud, let's take a look at it for just a second. Feel free to take yourself off mute, but if there's any one word that you see in the word cloud that really kind of resonates with you, that is really impactful, maybe in your daily life or in your field of expertise, or you can even write it in the chat. What is something that you see in the word cloud that really is impactful to you? I'll give you just a moment to do that. And if anyone wants to take their self off mute and talk, that's absolutely fine as well. Okay, educating and championing, collaboration, dedication. Those are all really good words. Action, yes, action.
Yes. I was thinking youth. I've personally gotten to see what it looks like to have a group of students talk to a state representative and how their eyes can really be opened up by hearing from the next generation. And it's in a way that, like, me as, a 26-year-old can't necessarily get that same effect.
Right. Yes. And that's amazing. It's impactful. That was another word that was listed. It's so impactful for them to have that opportunity and to be able to witness that opportunity as well. Opportunity is a good word. Yeah. One for me in particular is determination. And I think, and dedication. I think a lot of the words here are kind of meaningful to you in a specific way or reasoning. For me, it is that determination and dedication to bring us to the point of change. So that's kind of mine. All right, well, the next slide, we will talk about what the definition of advocacy really is. And so I'm not going to read that to you, but in today's terms, or in, I guess, today's webinar, we are going to kind of look at advocacy as a way to make change, to learn about really using your voice, educating, and making for sure that you are being action oriented in order to bring about that change. So that's what advocacy means for us today, and you can read that definition yourself. So there are two kinds of advocacy that we want to touch on today. One is policy education, and the other is lobbying. So policy education is really just that. It's really just that simple. It's educating someone, or a policymaker, an educator, the public. It is educating someone on that specific policy or something that you want to change. So here we have policy education involves educating the policymakers, the public. It's really just about educating. Lobbying, on the other hand, is really letting them know exactly what choice to make on a policy, a bill. And so we want to stay away from that. And that's Esther will kind of talk us through that here in just a moment. So we know the definition now. We want to bring about change. We want to educate to bring about change. So I want to know why advocate. Why is it important to advocate? Why should we advocate? You can type that in the chat box, or you feel free to come off of mute and tell us as well. Why advocate? To make our voice heard, to promote solutions. I like those, to spread the word. And this really coincides with what advocacy means to you, because depending on what it means to you is why you're going to advocate and what you're going to advocate for. Kendall says, if we don't raise our voice, terms no guarantee someone else, there's no guarantee someone else will. So we may be the only voice that's being heard or spoken. People are depending on us to use us to be their voice. So those are all great. So we want to kind of think of that in terms of what is your why. Here we have a couple of different whys. One could possibly be change. There is something that there's a solution out there or a problem out there that you may want to see changed. So that is your why as far as advocating. Engagement, purpose, leadership, voice. Advocating brings those people together that have that same voice, that want to be heard. And so there's purpose in that. There's purpose when we get together. Advocating may be your purpose in life, or in your professional role as well. All right, next slide. All right, I will pass this on to Esther, and she's going to take us through the advocacy roles.
Thank you, Nicole. Yes, the why is very important. It's what drives us. It is what motivates us to continue in the advocacy engagement, but also it encourages us to maybe bring others on board as well, from the local community or from other organizations. But the why we do this is very important. One thing that I wanted to clarify are the different roles that we have in terms of advocacy. And some of this, again, this is a basic 101 type of training. So we are going to go over some of the basics, but there is more information with this. I want to make sure that that you know from the top here that we're giving some information, but there are more, and we have some resources at the end that you can look at. So I want to go to the far right, the agency. We sometimes have a role in terms of being part of an organization and or an agency, and that agency has a statement or a purpose or a stance on an issue. And my role as part of that organization is to work then that plan that they have or that we have in order to get the change that we're trying to achieve or to address the issue that we're trying to achieve. So as an employee of or a member of an organization, that is one role that I may have. You may also be part of a coalition or a CPAW, and that coalition is focused on a certain issue or a certain substance in a certain community. Okay, that coalition also is working towards something. They will have some kind of guidelines depending on their funding, depending on the issues that are going on, that the data shows what issues in the local community. And so as part of a coalition, I then will work with my coalition and my community to make sure that my role is as an educator is to bring that information to light, share that information with the right person. Okay, so as a member of an organization, as a member of a coalition, we have similar types of roles there. As an individual, me, myself, and I can go ahead and contact any of my elected officials, and I can let them know what I feel about a certain issue. I can even tell them, I think that this bill is not a good thing for our communities, for our state, and I would ask you to vote no on this issue. This is something that many times in the past we have stayed away from even discussing in this type of setting because it is a basic advocacy training, but we want everyone to know from the very beginning that there are separate roles, and that if you are passionate about something, you as an individual, as a constituent, can definitely raise your voice and take the time to discuss the issues with your elected officials and take that a step further from what the coalition and the agency does, and being able to then talk about a specific bill or something and having them telling them what way you would want them to vote. I want to make sure that this is clear before I move on. Are there any questions or any comments about the different roles that we have before we continue? I think I saw Michael Mumper on here, and Michael has a lot of great information about that.
Oh, you're on mute.
Thanks for your patience. I really appreciate you saying that, Esther, that when we have different roles, we can do certain things. And I want to emphasize that we do have to be careful as a coalition member or an agency not to overstep those lobbying bounds. But as an individual, we have every right in the world to tell our story. And I see Doreen Barr's on this call, and I don't know anyone. I think Marty might be a great individual, lobbyist as well. And so what I'll do is I'll put in the chat right here some of the ways that when we tell our story, we can ensure we're acting as an individual, and the world knows, hey, I got my individual hat on. Could I put that in the chat, Esther?
Absolutely, Michael. Absolutely. You're going to be right in line with what we're doing here. Again, wanted to make that introduction. We will be going, as Nicole said, into a higher level of advocacy training, which we will include some more of that. But definitely wanted to make clear today what the different types of roles are. And Michael, please feel free to share anything in the chat box.
I'll find that and then post it. Thank you.
Did anyone else want to say anything or share anything about the different roles that we can have as an advocate? All right, we're gonna go on then. Okay, so now that I know the different roles that I have, and I know what advocacy is and why I'm advocating, where do I start? Well, one of the things that we can do and that we should do is find out who it is that we need to contact, who it is that's in the position to make the choices or to vote one way or another that leads to the changes that we want. And so this is the main website that you would go to. And what I want to do today is I'm going to take us there. Hopefully the technology will work. Yay, it worked, right? Okay, good. So this is a page. It's again, openstates.org. And you can select a state and all that. The easiest thing to do, enter your address. So I am going to put an address here. Of course. There we go. All right, put an address in, hit search. And here, based on the address that I entered, it gives me a list of my state, federal, all of these different people that I can communicate with. And you could take it a step further. I can click on Trey's page here, and it gives me information about him, his website, his contact information, his email address. This is going to be more for the second level of advocacy training, but you can see what type of bills they've sponsored as well, what their stance is on some of the issues. So this website is very, very informative. And if you're not sure what the next step is, once you have the basic information, this would be it. Find out who it is that, who are your elected officials, and find out a little bit more about them. That's a very important step. Okay, I think I'm back to the presentation. Yes, appreciate that. Okay, something that personally I've always been intimidated by in terms of my role in advocacy is, what if I don't know enough? What if I'm in a position, or I'm meeting with somebody and I'm not sure exactly how to do this, or I'm even in my local coalition and I'm encouraging people to advocate, but I don't know anything about the process. So this is something that we found on YouTube. It's not very long, but it takes us through the process of how a bill becomes a law. And this is something that we don't have to know every little detail about, but to have an overview and understanding of this is another important aspect of being an advocate, being able to educate ourselves as well as others. So we're going to play this.
Hello, everyone. I'm Georgia State Senator Ed Harbison, and I'm here today to inform you on how a bill becomes law. At the Georgia State Capitol in downtown Atlanta, legislators convene every year for a period of 40 days to vote on different bills through a constitutional process. The final step for a bill to become law is for the governor to approve it. Let me walk you through the steps that a bill takes before finally going to the governor's desk for his or her consideration. First, the legislator will have an idea on a specific issue in the state that they see need action on. More often than not, this idea can come from constituents like yourself. Remember, our job is to serve you, so we're always on the lookout to address needs that you bring to our attention. Legislation may be introduced by either a state representative on the House side or by a state senator on the Senate side. The Georgia House of Representatives made up of 180 elected officials, and the Georgia State Senate made up of 56 elected officials. Together, they create the General Assembly. These two chambers represent the bicameral nature of the General Assembly. No bill will make it to the governor's desk unless it receives approval in both chambers. After a legislator has an idea for a bill, he or she takes it to the Office of Legislative Counsel to draft what will become law, the actual legislation, in the form of a bill or resolution. The next step is to file the legislation with the Secretary of the Senate's office or the Clerk of the House, depending on if the bill began in the Senate or on the House side. Then the bill is read and assigned to a committee on the following legislative day. On the Senate side, the Lieutenant Governor is responsible for assigning a bill to a specific committee. And on the House side, the role is filled by the Speaker of the House. While a bill is heard in a committee, the bill sponsor may invite policy experts, agency representatives, and other stakeholders to testify on how the bill will affect Georgians. Committee hearings are open to the public, and anyone is welcome to attend and have the voice heard at the same time. If the majority of legislators in a committee vote for the bill to pass out after considering testimonies given, that bill would then go through the Rules Committee. The Rules Committee is an important step for a bill because that is the committee in which the chairman decides which bill will be voted on each day by the entire Senate body. Once bills are added to the calendar, each bill will then be brought to the floor for consideration of all members of the chamber, where an opportunity for additional debate is held before a final vote. If the bill passes favorably in one chamber, the bill process starts over in the opposite chamber, being assigned to a committee and passing favorably on the floor. So if a bill started on the Senate side, it will then move over to the House for consideration. If that bill makes it through a House committee with no changes and through the House floor with no changes, it will then be sent to the governor for final approval. If there are changes to the wording of a bill on either side, those changes must be sent back over to the other side for approval of those changes. Once both chambers have passed a bill or resolution, the legislation will be transmitted to the governor's office for executive action. The governor will have 40 days to either sign or veto legislation, and any legislation not acted upon will automatically become law at the end of the 40 days. If the governor vetoes a bill, it will go back to the chamber from which it originated. The General Assembly can overrule a veto with the support of 2/3 majority vote in each chamber. I hope that this video has helped you better understand the legislative process, and I encourage you to keep your eyes and ears open for any ways we can create legislation to better serve you and our state. Everyone has a voice. Don't be afraid to use yours and stand up for what you believe in. Our state capital
Okay. Sorry.
is open to everyone, and I hope you get a chance to visit soon if you have never had the opportunity. My office is open if you have any question on how a bill becomes a law or about our state government in general. I'm State Senator Ed Harbison, and I wish you a wonderful rest of the day.
Okay. I would love, and I see that there are a lot of comments in the chat, so I'm going to take a moment here to stop and see if there's any questions or anything. But we were looking for something to go through that process, and there were a few things that were outdated. And this video was created 8 months ago, so it is very, very recent. Does anyone have any comments or questions? I know that's a lot. There's a lot of information. What it does for us, though, at this level is to help us to begin to understand that there is a process, and that it's not that with that process in place, we have an opportunity to advocate for the issues that we are passionate about. Okay, so again, it could be at the local level, or once a bill is introduced, the educational. There are so many different parts or different areas during that process that we can become involved. Any comments or questions about the process? Is there anything in the chat?
I just wanted to take just a moment and kind of piggyback off of a couple of comments that's great information to know generally. And all of us learned that information at one point when we were, probably 7, 8, 9 years old in elementary school. But how many times do we use that information on a daily basis to where we remember and retain that knowledge? So even though it's a lot of information, it's really good information to have, especially when you're talking about advocacy, educating those who may not, know the issues in your community or at the state level or even the federal level. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right. What's next? I always like to say that because to me it's always okay. This is done. Check. Now let's move on to the next thing. This is the action part, and I really enjoy this part of the of trainings because it goes beyond the knowledge and it goes to, okay, now I can do something. Okay, I mean, I did the research, I found out who my elected officials are. Now, what can I do? The first thing, we're going to go through three V's. The first thing is be vocal. We talked about this earlier. Use your voice. Use your voice in order to call or communicate with your elected officials. Ask the questions. Use your voice. And the second one is really important because sometimes it's hard to get a hold of that senator, right? Or that, representative, but they have staff and their staff are very important. So by meeting with them and educating them, that is an important step as well, important aspect of this. So being vocal and being able to communicate what the information that we want to share. Be visible. This is very important. Attend a Prevention Day event. And that's kind of a plug for us, but we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. Hold a coalition event and invite your local county commissioners. Invite people that have that influence to an event that you have organized as a coalition. Get supporters. One of the things that a lot of people talk about is having a champion in the community to help your cause, and all of that is important. I want to point something out here that I actually have been doing some reading and some research, and there are different ways or different aspects of advocating. One of them is self, right? I can advocate for myself. I have an issue, let's say, and I need to go to this place and make my case, right? That's mine. But there's also the second one, which is you can advocate for another person. Let's say you have a child that has some needs, right? And you can advocate for that individual. Or there are there's a veteran that has some issues, and as a neighbor, as a friend, you want to help that person get the help that they need and deserve. So that is another way to advocate, another aspect, right? I can advocate for myself. I can advocate for a different individual. I can advocate as a coalition, like we mentioned, and then I can advocate as part of a system. And what we do in the prevention field, whether it's suicide prevention or substance use prevention, we are advocating at the systemic level, right? We want to make sure that we are all advocating, that we all have this information, these skills, so that we can make a big change. So I just wanted to share that. It wasn't necessarily in one of the slides, but I have been reading and thinking about it, and I thought it'd be good to share that. So I am going to pass it on. Oh no, there's one more V. Be valuable, be a resource. I think that is one of the most important things. We have the idea that these senators and representatives have everything together and they know what they're doing. And I'm just, from this little community, and I'm not sure. We are the experts in our fields. We know about substance abuse prevention and suicide prevention. We know the needs of our local county or town. So we have to become a resource to them so that they can then take the message and hopefully act upon it. Okay, so becoming that resource. One of the things that I was able to achieve in one of my communities is that people began to recognize me as a substance abuse prevention go-to person. So when there was a question about something, they would say, okay, go call Esther. Here's Esther's email because she can answer that question for you. Or if she doesn't know, she can find out for you. Being that resource, becoming that resource for your legislator or your local leaders is an important part of being valuable, of adding value to the efforts that we're doing. Recognize people who have been helpful. That is very, very important, because if they take time out of their schedule to attend one of our events, right, one of our town hall meetings or something like that, it is very important to recognize them so that next time you invite them, they're more likely to come, right? They love a photo op. So if you have an event and they're there with you, make sure that you have you take the opportunity to take a photo with them and get that in the local paper or magazine or whatever it is. So make sure that we recognize those that are willing to work with us and are attending and helping us through this process. I'm going to pass it on to Nicole now.
All right, just a few more helpful tips for the next step. And those are going to bring that helpful tips is going to bring us to the 5 C's. All right, these are just some hard-hitting tips to remember. Hopefully they're going to be easy for you to remember. That's what we want when you take this information away from you. So to remember the top 5 C's, it's real easy. Be credible, clear, committed, celebrate, and cultivate champions. So we're going to go through each of those quickly. Be credible. Make for sure that the facts and data that you have with you is correct. Let's not, Google and Wikipedia and use that as our data. We want from reputable sources and truthful sources. So we can give that information to them and educate them. We want to be clear. It's very hard for them to, in the prevention world or in the nonprofit world, in the government world, all of those worlds, there's so many acronyms, so many names that they may not understand. So, especially when you're talking about substance abuse prevention, sometimes people call it SAP or suicide prevention is SP. You want to break those things down, be completely clear and concise. The next C is number 3, be committed. You want to be able to convey your passion about the issue at hand, but you want to make for sure that you're not, oversharing. You want to make for sure that you share the appropriate information. And follow up with new information when it is the correct time. So always be committed to that, following up with that information. Celebrate your victories. Getting a meeting with a legislator is a victory. So celebrate that. You want to thank them and let them know that their time that they have given to you is not forgotten and is very important, and you see that, and you thank them for that. You also want to celebrate any, like I said, getting a meeting with the legislator is definitely a win, but even making the phone call is a win. So make for sure you celebrate those.
Nicole,
next,
I want to share one thing, because this is when we celebrate victories, it's those small steps that get us to the goal. Sometimes even getting our coalition members involved, attending a webinar like this, attending an event at the Capitol, those small victories can lead us then to our ultimate goal. So please do not look at, oh, well, yeah, so we went to this or we did that, but, we really haven't done anything. Yes, we have, because again, taking those small steps and celebrating those victories will take us to where we really want to go.
Good point. And it's any victory from small to large, because what you're doing is you're making steps to get to that goal. And it doesn't matter if it's baby steps or big steps, it's steps in the right direction. The last C to remember is to cultivate champions. It really hits hard when you think about it like this. You are forging and building a relationship with the policymaker, with the legislator, with the county commission, with the chair of the Board of Education. You are making that relationship. And so through that, you are educating them and creating those cheerleaders. You're creating those champions that will hopefully, be a lifelong relationship with you. It's not just about what we want when we want it, but really making for sure that we reach out to those legislators even when we don't need something. Maybe we can help them in something in another capacity. It's about that, building that relationship and making them a part of your life in general. Now that, you don't have to be best friends with them and go to dinner with them, but definitely want to cultivate that relationship and build those champions into your life, into the coalition meetings, into things of that nature.
Before we go on to the next slide, I want to give people a chance to talk about some of the champions that they have in their communities or that they know of. I know that sometimes those champions are people that have had a loss. And so it's personal to them. And so they have dedicated their lives to speaking up about this issue. So there are different types of champions in our local community, in our state. Does anyone want to share something about a champion that they know of and what that means to your efforts? I don't know if anyone is writing anything in the chat box. Let's see. Okay. Not seeing this. All right. I do want to mention that finding that champion in your community for your issue will really help take the message a step further. Having that personal story. Again, someone mentioned about youth, bringing youth to it. It affects youth. If we're talking about youth substance use prevention, having youth there, they can be the champions. So definitely identify the right champions and then build that relationship with them.
I could add one thing about that, Esther. You're on mute.
Okay, please.
One of the people who do this the best, cultivating champions, is Jeff Breedlove with the Council for, I just drew a blank. How did I do that?
The Georgia Council on Recovery, is it? Or
yeah, Georgia Council for Recovery. Thank you. He does have relationships with a lot of representatives and senators, but one of the reasons is because he's so good at cultivating champions. So anytime he connects with them and builds a relationship with them, he does something they need, which is to get public exposure. So he does a Facebook post and he says, "Hey, thank you to Representative Sharon Cooper for showing up to our event today, or for being a champion for this cause," and he does a great job at that.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael. Yes, definitely. That's a good example of that.
Jennifer Wilds had a really good point in the comment section, Esther. of the chats, she said she's not had anyone join coalitions or come to events, but the WIN has been getting them to come out of session and talk to me every year so that we can continue to share information and experiences.
Wonderful.
So that's a good one too.
Yes. Thank you for sharing.
All right, we have reached the tools and resources part of this. And if anybody at any point has any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. But these are some valuable resources that we have found while putting this webinar together and just being in general advocate awareness. But on our website, the V for PGA, we have a beginner's advocacy toolkit, and it's for you can download it. It's downloadable, and it kind of goes through all of the basic information that you need to know. It's the beginner's advocacy toolkit is what it's called. So definitely check that out if you have time. We also have borrowed some great information from CADCA. They are a great organization who also has an advocacy toolkit. So that is downloadable on their website as well. Again, afsp.org and samhsa.gov are both great information. Definitely pull some information from there, visit their website. They have tools and resources available as well.
I am a big believer about not reinventing the wheel. If I don't have to create something, then that's wonderful, because there are people in these organizations that have already done that, have tried it and tested it, and these methods or these tools that they have developed, they're there for us. And so it is very important then to try to get those tools in order to become more effective. So again, don't reinvent something. You have plenty of resources here that you can use, and each of these websites have plenty of tools in order to fit the need that you have.
So prior, we had talked about one of the ways to, kind of get involved or put your words into action is to attend Prevention Day rallies or events. And this is a really big deal for, everyone in prevention, because whether we have an event for substance abuse and suicide prevention, we'll get to that one in just a moment. But it really brings us all together, and specifically to have those conversations with our legislators. So we're going to have Substance Abuse Prevention Day at the Capitol, February the 23rd. It's going to be from 9:30 a.m. till 12 noon. And this is going to be a time of, getting a chance to speak with your legislators. We're going to provide some data sheets, some fact sheets. We're going to have some information on different things that you can talk about, how to talk with your legislators. So we're going to prep you for the work, and then you will get to put that into action at that event. So to register for that, just go to v4pga.org, and Brian also put those in the chat box for everyone, so you can click on those and go ahead and register.
I want to add to that before we go to the other one. It's absolutely making the appointments, but this is a beginner. So if you still feel that they say this is the very first time that you're exposed to this, go with the group. You don't have to do it just by yourself. My first experience in advocacy, I went with the group. I wasn't the speaker. I wasn't ready for that because, again, I had these kind of insecurities about things. But I was able to go with the group, participate in that, and see how it was done. And by doing those type of things, then that builds the confidence in order to then get to a point where I can schedule the appointments and I can be the one with my fact sheet or my elevator speech just ready to go. But don't feel pressure that you have to be able to, in a month, schedule an appointment and be ready to present this. This is something that we can do as groups as well.
And that's a good point. We don't want to scare anyone off. We want everyone to come to this event. So definitely. And it's about those baby steps, about those, those little steps, but they're still steps. So our next prevention day is Suicide Prevention Day at the Capitol. And it will be March the 23rd, again, from 9:30 to 12. And we will meet at the Capitol. Hear some great speakers, possibly have a photo op with the governor, maybe even hear from the governor himself. And then there will be time as well to meet with your legislators, if that is something that you would like to do. And you can register through our website, and Brian had put those in the chat box. So are there any questions before we, anyone have any questions or comments?
Okay, I see a question Michael put in there. How can I tell if I already registered for Social Abuse Prevention Day? You should have received a confirmation email, and I'm going to let Nicole or Brian to explain that, because that's kind of the technical stuff that I just kind of please do and fix it and not worry about it.
So yeah, I can definitely check for you on that as well, Michael. If you'll just shoot me an email, I can check for you. But if you did not receive your email with the information, you may want to check your spam box. Mine went to my spam box as well. But that would be good question. Good question.
Okay, there's another question. And this says, as a contractor for DHDD and MHA, mental health, I'm not sure what the what that acronym is.
America.
Mental Health America. Yes. Okay. Thank you, Marty. Do I still need to advocate as an individual? That's a good question. Obviously, as a contractor for the state, there are different limitations based on the funding. But do I still need to? You definitely can. I would think that if you are passionate about something you want to, then yes, as an individual, you have, again, that opportunity to talk to your elected official and say, this bill is a problem. As a contractor for the state, that is the line that you can't cross. So I would say yes, as an individual, it's important that I advocate if I want to get to that point. Because in the other roles, I am then working as my goal is to educate, the policy education aspect of it. Does that answer the question, Marty? Yes.
Yes, thank you, Esther.
Okay, great. Any other comments or questions? This is great.
Yeah, I had a question. This is Jennifer. Can you just tell us a little, I guess, layout of the day? I know you said that the rallies, at least for suicide prevention, will be later in the year or whenever. Like, what does the day look like? It just sounds like we're setting up appointments with our legislators potentially in advance, and we're walking around meeting with them. Like, can you, just tell us a little bit about I'm having a hard time imagining what the day looks like.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Again, this is part of the assuming that everyone understands and knows. So thank you for that question. Definitely this year is a little different than previous years. So even if you have attended, this will be a little different. We had decided that we want to make sure that we focus on the advocacy aspect of this day. And so we are going to have this event only at the Capitol. So that event on the 23rd of March or February we'll have guest speakers. Again, Nicole mentioned the governor. He's been at our events for the last, I think, 4 years, or has sent a message. We will have other elected officials that are champions, I would say, or at least in support of some of the issues. So we'll have some speakers, we'll have some youth there as well. So we'll have an hour of speakers and people from the state will also be there. We're hoping that the new commissioner for on DBHED might be there as well. And then you will have time to go and visit with your legislator. Now, one thing I will add, Jennifer, is that if you haven't been able to make that appointment, there is a way that you can potentially meet with them by going to the ropes. And that is something that's a little more detailed, but we do have some resources, a handout on what that means, and we will have it available that day. Okay, now the rally part is going to be in September. And we are going to be working with that and getting that ready. And that's when we have our other guest speakers, youth speakers, and we'll get together at different tables to talk about the different issues, whether it's substance abuse or suicide prevention. And that event will be later in September. All right. Did that
Thank
answer
you.
everything? Okay.
Yes,
Perfect.
thank you so much.
Esther, we had one more question in the chat. Kendall wanted to know, will an appointment be made for her to speak to her representative when she registers for Substance Abuse Prevention Day?
We had not been making appointments for people because, again, each person needs to know who they're going to make the appointment with. Their address is important because you can say, I work in this community, but I live in this community. So which one are you going to do? But we do offer assistance in helping you find out the information and even giving you some templates of emails or things that you can use to make that appointment. I think, are we good with the questions? Anybody else have anything they want to add before we wrap this up? Okay.
I wanted to put a plug in for our survey as well. I will definitely be emailing most or all of our attendees who, am I on mute? I bet I'm on mute.
No, you're not.
Okay. Who are attendees today who have attended, and we would really love your, I'm going to put it in the chat box as well, but we would really love your feedback on this. It helps us tremendously to know what you guys need and how we can deliver that. So please take just a moment. Absolutely, your feedback is so valuable and so important. And be looking for that email if you don't fill it out just yet.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And we look forward to seeing you on the 23rd, either February or March. Bye, everybody.